Welcome to The Right Focus, a podcast for writers, newbies and veterans, and everyone in between. We're hosted by M.A. Lee with the assistance of Remy Black and Edie Rooms, all from Writers Inc. books. Our focus is productivity, process, craft, and tools. Each episode lasts as long as it takes to fix a quick dinner, grab a short commute, or take a brisk walk. Resources and links are in the show notes. Visit us at therightfocus.blogspot.com. Now, on to this week's episode. October is a month of changes, of transitions, anticipation of the autumn colors, even as summer gives us a few reminders of his warmth. And October ends with All Hallows Eve, the evening before a holy day, a time of riotous revelry by the forces defiant against God, the Father, Creator, Savior. Creeping upon me with early chill of October mornings was the realization that Christina Rossetti should be next in our Fall into Poetry series. Born 1830, died 1894, Christina Rossetti is sister to the artist and poet Dante Rossetti of the Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood, the Victorian painter who reached into the past and into mythology for the primary subjects of their lush artwork. Most know Christina Rossetti for Goblin Market, a long narrative poem of two sisters, one who succumbs to temptation and tastes the fruit sowed by the goblins. Morning and evening, maids heard the goblins cry, "Come buy our orchard fruits, come buy, come buy." Apples and quinces, lemons and oranges, plump unpecked cherries, melons and raspberries, bloomed down-cheeked peaches, swart-headed mulberries, wild freeborn cranberries, and on and on and on. But we're not going to look at Goblin Market. I know, you're disappointed. I nearly pulled out Rossetti's A Birthday, which is a rather neat little poem with a hidden meaning. Remember how Stephen Sondheim said that the clowns in his Send in the Clowns are not circus clowns meant to entertain, but the clowns of classic tragedy who are to distract from the tragedy before them? In Rossetti's Birthday, she is not commemorating the day someone was born. Her focus is the day of conception. But we have to read closely to find that meaning. I do like puzzling out riddles, and many avid readers are the same. That enjoyment of puzzles accounts for the success of the mystery genre. It's not the same enjoyment as romance readers who devour books, racing to the end of an emotional high over relationships. I've been a wolf-devouring romance reader in my past, but I love a good mystery, preferably one not full of mistakes, which I ranted about in one of the challenge episodes this past summer. Anyway, Rossetti's poetry. First, I crossed From Sunset to Starrise, a classic Petrarchan sonnet, or an Italian sonnet, a form she may have preferred to recognize her Italian ancestry. Then I crossed, back to back, two calendar poems, reminding me of Helen Hunt Jackson's calendar poems. Whereas Jackson wrote a poem for each month, Rossetti's two calendar poems track the entire year. And thus, I am hooked. And I discover that all three poems have a certain coldness in common, an unexpected type of coldness. We look first at the untitled poem known for its first line, January, cold, desolate. January, cold, desolate. February, all dripping wet. March wind ranges, April changes. Birds sing in tune to flowers of May, and sunny June brings longest day. In scorched July, the storm clouds fly lightning torn. August bears corn, September fruit. In rough October, earth must disrobe her. Stars fall and shoot in keen November, and night is long and cold is strong in bleak December. In finding this poem, I stumbled upon a poetry website that I shall not return to. A first lesson for all writers. The website claimed January Code Desolate was like a sonnet. That mistake immediately turned me from the site. Mistakes so glaring ruin credibility. That which we don't trust, we don't return to, which is the reason so many dislike artificial intelligence, AI, when it lies. The other reason was its theft of copyrighted works to build its training base, scraping books without permission or license. That's not fair use, that's theft, especially when so many works reside freely in the public domain that could have been used. Sorry, rant over. January Code Desolate is not a sonnet. The poem is 20 lines, not the sonnet's required 14 lines. The rhyming is an interesting mix of couplet, triplet, paired rhyme bracketing more couplets. The metrical pattern is equally confused, with line length shifting from 8 syllables to 4, 4 to 5, and so on. Nothing regular, nothing set in a pattern, constantly changing, like the year itself, with changes to our expectations for a month. The number of lines devoted to a single month also changes. January, February, March all receive 1 line. June has 2, July 3, August 1, October 2, November 2, December 3. Nothing to discover there. It is a catalog poem, a listing, as she does in Goblin Market, with all the varieties of fruit deceptively for sale. Walt Whitman popularized the catalog about 20 to 30 years before Rossetti began writing. But this is not his free verse. For one, this poem does have rhyme, even though that's irregular. Rossetti sets a pattern, then breaks it, creating expectations as she mixes everything up, just as the months of the year create expectations, then mix things around and surprises. Rossetti didn't drop a poetic plan because it proved difficult. She deliberately created this expected, unexpected plan. That's a second lesson for all writers. Never be locked into a formula. Formulas do help us learn something. At a certain point, with it internalized, we can drop the formula and let the writing flow to develop its theme naturally rather than forcing it. Readers who read a lot in a genre have an inherent understanding of the points of a formula, even if they cannot classify those points. And those readers have a very acute sense of when a writer imposes or forces a formula to work rather than letting it flow organically. January Code Desolate is a straightforward poem with little room for a hidden message. It speaks its truth of each month of the year with no hints of a puzzle. Our second Rossetti's poem, A Year's Windfall, is much longer, 12 stanzas of 8 lines, with every even-numbered line rhyming in a stanza. So we have 2 rhymes per stanza. On the wind of January down flits the snow, traveling from the frozen north as cold as it can blow. Poor Robin Redbreast, look where he comes. Let him in to fill your fire and toss him of your crumbs. On the wind in February, snowflakes float still, half inclined to turn to rain, nipping, dripping, chill. Then the thaws swell the streams, and swollen rivers swell the sea. If the winter ever ends, how pleasant it will be. Like Jackson's September and October, we have descriptive details of the months and only hints at emotion. Poor Robin Redbreast in January. It's a highly controlled poem in meter and thought, bare glimpses of emotion and of opinion. We read, we agree with each description of the month, but nothing speaks to our minds, our hearts, our souls. It's a soulless poem, moving through the year, moving through the motions of life. registering changes, but letting nothing reach deep into us. We actually prefer January cold, desolate. We have rhetorical devices at work. Every stanza, except one, begins with a prepositional phrase. Alliterative trutches occur. Swollen rivers swell the seas. First fruits from the withering trees. Catkins drop down curly, caterpillar-like, curious green and brown. The occasional anaphora, some glow golden, some seem green, some set forth, some blush rosy-cheeked, and juxtaposition, pink or white, wax and wane. And a syndeton, nipping, dripping, chill. It's a lovely lesson in hitting all the poetic marks, but it doesn't speak to us. The writer has closed her heart and written a poem everyone will approve and no one will love. And so we come to From Sunset to Star Rise. Now this is a sonnet, not only because it has 14 lines, but its rhyme scheme follows the Petrarchan sonnet form, ABBA, ABBA, CDC, EFE, octet and sestet, which places the volta, the turning point, at the start of the sestet. Let's examine it quatrain by quatrain, which Rossetti wants because each quatrain is a complete sentence. Go from me, summer friends, and tarry not. I am no summer friend, but wintry cold. A silly sheep benighted from the fold, a sluggard with a thorn-choked garden plot. Our speaker, a woman, is willingly separating herself from her friends, her summer friends, those who stick around only when times are good, yet vanish when troubles come. She gives them an excuse. I am no summer friend, but wintry cold. Her friendship is not for them, but for someone who will brave the worst a year can offer, who will snuggle close with her during that hard time. She calls herself a silly sheep benighted from the fold. My Webster gives two disparate definitions for benighted: in a state of moral or social darkness, and overtaken by darkness. Based on her willing rejection of summer friends, our definition to choose is overtaken by darkness. She's a silly sheep. Sheep go along with the flock. Those that stray pursue their noses and grazing mouths into trouble and need a savior to bring them back. Our speaker has no savior. She went astray, silly her, but she's not going to play victim. The first quatrain concludes that she's a sluggard with a thorn-choked garden plot. Shall we back our way through this line? She has a fertile means to nourish herself, but she's not tending it to be fruitful or to flourish. It's thorn-choked. Only a brave knight would courageously battle those thorns to reach her. She's not going to do anything about them. She claims she's a sluggard. Is she? I think not any more than she's a silly sheep. She made wintry cold decisions. She's not regretting them. The second quatrain gives us a repetition as well as opens a curtaining veil to learn more. Take counsel. Sever from my lot your lot. Dwell in your pleasant places. Hoard your gold, lest you with me should shiver on the wold, athirst and hungering on a barren spot. The first two lines remind us that she sent away her summer friends. She tells them to protect themselves, lest you with me should shiver on the wold, athirst and hungering of a barren spot. Wold is elevated, open country, her barren garden spot. She will shiver there, away from friendship and love, emotionless and cold, and she rejects the help they offer, their gold. Hoard it, she tells them. Keep it for yourselves. She doesn't want it, even if she should starve. People who think they should feel compassion, who think they should help, often take the easiest way, which is throwing money at a problem rather than trying to solve the problem. She's not a problem to be solved. She's a person with a problem. You want to help her? Then you'll have to face the trouble with her. we've reached the volta at the sestet. Rhyme gives us two triplets, but meaning gives us a couplet, then the last 4 lines together. The volta couplet tells us that she's not asking for favors. She knows what she needs to do, and she's going to do it. For I have hedged me with a thorny hedge. I live alone. I look to die alone. Thorns again. A thorny hedge protecting her, encircling her. Like a princess asleep in a garden bower, waiting for a waking kiss from a brave knight. She doesn't expect that night to come. After all, she's benighted, an obvious pun, and thus the third allusion to Sleeping Beauty fairy tale. Our speaker may be the sleeping princess with no expectation of rescue. I live alone. I look to die alone. But the winter wind reminds her of a heart-warm past. These are the last 4 lines. Yet sometimes, when a wind sighs through the sedge, ghosts of my buried years and friends come back. My heart goes sighing after swallows flown on sometimes summer's unreturning track. Ghost of my buried years and friends come back. She remembers. She may regret. She does wish. My heart goes sighing after swallows flown on sometimes summer's unreturning track. Summer will not return. In Greek myth, the swallow is the bird of Aphrodite, the goddess of erotic love, temporary, lustful. Her son Eros, sometimes called Cupid, represents eternal love. It wasn't everlasting love that sent her into the self-imposed exile. Silly sheep, she has no brave knight hacking his way through a thorny hedge, only a summer friend of temporary lust, burnt out, ashes cold, a winter remembrance. From Sunset to Starrise gives us our last 2 lessons for all writers. The personal connection to the poem is always stronger than a poem just moving through the motions. Hit this mark, that one, t'other one, and finish it. Without opening a little of the self on the page, we readers have a hard time connecting to the writing. It's not memorable. We do not win any true fans. 4th and final lesson. Rossetti does not make an obvious allusion to a fairy tale or a myth. She makes oblique allusions. She keeps the first 2 close to each other, then picks it up again, and the puzzle-loving reader spots it and settles in for fun. The other 2 allusions, the swallows and the sluggard, who needs to be wise, right after calling herself a silly sheep, open and close the poem, pointing out a hidden lesson, that love is more than lust, never be fooled. We can set up allusions in our writing, one set not obvious but clear, then hidden ones that only searching readers will spot. Oblique allusions work well in poems, blogs, and short stories. Obvious allusions work well in longer works, using distance to plant the clues. Allusions should fit thematically, or they strike a jarring note. They should be like ghost, an amorphous flicker, barely tangible, there and not there, dependent on memory and connection, like the ghost in From Sunset to Starrise. And on that bit of advice, we'll close. Remember, write on. Every writer is after memorable writing, whatever will strengthen our words and ideas so they haunt our audience. We want our audience to return again and again to our writing, either to recapture that original impact or to puzzle out a question that wasn't answered. Capture our audience, and they stay with our writing to the end. Satisfy our audience, and they seek more of our writing. This is our goal. Win-win, us and them. Our series, Fall into Poetry, would seem to appeal only to poets, but that's a surface glance. We writers can learn from any writing style, poetry teaching fiction, dramas teaching nonfiction, any mix-up we can contemplate. Join the Right Focus all through autumn as we examine great poems that teach a multitude of lessons for all writers. Thanks for listening to The Right Focus, a podcast for writers at all levels, hosted by Emma Lee from Writers Inc. Books, assisted by Remy Black and Edie Runes. Our focus is productivity, process, craft, and tools. Music is licensed through Audio Jungle, called Background Music Loop. Its creator is Alexander Polishchuk, known on Audio Jungle as Plastic 3. The music comes in different iterations. Show notes and resource links for this and other episodes can be found at therightfocus.blogspot.com. Write to us at linkbooks@aol.com when you have questions, comments, and speculations. We will try to answer you as quickly as possible. By the way, we will not mind your email address. That's rude. If you find value in our content, share with your writing friends or write a review. We're small beans here without the advertising budget of the big peeps, and you can make a difference. And whatever occurs, write on.